You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. All right, LSU polished off the 2022 season with an emphatic statement. A 63-7 win over Purdue in the Citrus Bowl. Pretty much everything went right for LSU in all three phases of that game. I'll say it again. I know Purdue was shorthanded. They were without Aiden O'Connell. They were without Charlie Jones. They were without their starting tight end, a cornerback. Very good players. That ain't why the game ended up 63-7. Because LSU was without three starting defensive linemen, a starting cornerback, two starting wide receivers. I mean, you were missing a lot of talent as well in this ballgame. Your starting running back didn't make the trip. So LSU was shorthanded as well and throttled Purdue. And pretty much everything LSU wanted to do, it did and did well. What was interesting, we learned after the game, is that one of the things LSU wanted to do was play two quarterbacks. And Jaden Daniels got the start. And Brian Kelly, after the game, made it clear that the plan was that they were going to play Garrett Nussmeier in the third series. Now, after that, how it would go, don't know. But here was what Brian Kelly said about Garrett Nussmeier's performance.
Yeah, I thought he did well. I mean, and we made it clear he was going to go in the third series, and I didn't know what was going to happen after that, but just made it clear to him, go in, do your job. You got a job to do, get it done, and then we'll roll after that and see how it goes. And obviously he played a lot more. The way the game was kind of trending, he got even more playing time.
So when you look at Garrett's stat line, 11 of 15 for 173, 2 touchdowns and a pick, it is worth noting, and you kind of have to put the little asterisk because 75 yards of it came on the jet sweep to Malik Neighbors, which was not a pass, but it was because it was a shovel forward. It counts as passing yardage. So you have to look at his day sort of sans that. But he was very good. Went in the third series, and boy, did they churn. Noah Cain, 14-yard run, immediately took a deep shot to Malik Neighbors, which was incomplete, that Malik honestly could have caught. Maybe when Malik said after the game he was focused on his 3 drops, that was one of them. The first ball from Nuss was one Malik could have caught and might have scored. Ran it with Noah Cain. They had a 3rd and 8. Malik for 14 yards, which was a beautiful pass by Garrett Nussmeier on a rope. 6-yard pass to Brian Thomas. Another deep incompletion. 3rd and 4. The 17-yarder to Mason Taylor over the middle. Another dart that he threw. And then they got down near the goal line, and Noah Cain scored on the touchdown run. So Nussmeier was efficient on that drive. He came back in on the final drive of the first half, and that's where he threw the touchdown pass to Brian Thomas to go up 35-0. That was the Neighbors to Lacey 45-yarder, but was efficient, sharp, looked good throwing the football. You saw all the things from Garrett Nussmeier that has people excited about it. The arm strength, the tempo, the energy, all of it. It was there. So too was the interception in the end zone. And the thing about Garrett Nussmeier that we've talked about is, and everyone says it, the gunslinger mentality and all that, and that's fine. And you want aggressive. What you can't have is careless or aggressive that hurts you. And if you're going to have the conversation about Garrett and you're going to point out all the things you like, you have to also have the conversation about the thing primarily, singular. That is his gigantic Achilles heel right now, which is his inability to protect the football. He had 2 awful interceptions against Southern. Even the second half against Georgia. Slinging the ball around, looking really good. He also made a terrible throw into double coverage, which was intercepted. And you don't pay attention to it because you're down 4 touchdowns. Like, no one's going to point out the interception in the end zone against Purdue because you're beating the crap out of Purdue. But what if you're in a close game and you make that play? And those are the things that have followed him. And it's fair to mention both. And that's what he's got to have coached out of him. For Jaden Daniels, 12 of 17 for 139. He ran it 6 times for 67 yards, along with 37. Jaden did what Jaden does. He protected the football. He took his checkdowns when they were there. He pushed the ball downfield when he needed to, even caught a touchdown pass. So a very productive day for both of LSU's quarterbacks as they played. Now, one of the things that we were talking about, and yes, listen, along with Garrett, if you're going to say credit the good stuff, do it, but also point out the bad. I would say the same with Jaden. You point out the things that he does very well and the things in areas where he needs to grow. Could he be more aggressive? Yes, there was that balance that both of these guys have to do, where Garrett needs to not be careless and you need Jaden to be more aggressive. Both of those things are realities surrounding the two players, which are both very good football players. But after the game, Brian Kelly made it pretty clear that he does not see this as a quarterback controversy, but the end of this answer is the thing that's going to generate a lot of conversation.
There's no quarterback controversy. Jalen is our number one quarterback. Garrett will get an opportunity to compete, though. And look, the most important thing is when you have two really good quarterbacks, you have to have an open mind. You can't be closed-minded when you're looking at two, elite quarterbacks. So what we've committed to is an open mind and an open process where you can go in and, we're going to give you an opportunity to continue to grow. And then, that's going to allow both of our quarterbacks and Walker to continue to grow as quarterbacks at LSU.
I'm going to come back to something Brian Kelly said there in a second. But first, Brian Kelly was also asked if he believed all three guys were going to be here in the spring.
I absolutely 100% believe that all three quarterbacks are going to be with us. And all of them we've had conversations with and feel that that's the direction we're going.
Okay. The fact that all three of these guys, again, the coaching staff has had the conversation with the players, expects all of them to be back for spring football. Now, do they all make it to fall? We'll see. But the fact that all three of them, and in particular, we're talking about Nussmeier and Walker Howard, because Jaden is your incumbent. He's announced he's coming back, and he's the starter. The head coach just said it there. Jaden Daniels is your starter. There's no quarterback controversy. The fact that the other two guys are coming back, or let me rephrase, the fact that the other two guys have not entered the portal yet, I think is indicative of the fact that they don't want to leave. Both Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard want to be at LSU, which is a great launching point. Okay, it's a great jumping off point for the conversation, because if those guys are willing to be here and compete and stick it out, great. You need that to begin with, because in many instances, what you would have seen is, for especially Garrett Nussmeier now, who's going to be going into year 3 with an incumbent ahead of him, he's going to go somewhere else. And if he were going to go somewhere else, he would have already made that decision. I'm not saying he won't, but they're expecting him to be here in the spring. Now, how do you handle that? Now, this is the reality around a quarterback situation where you try to play multiple guys, where you try to appease a lot of guys. It's toxic. The fact that LSU just won a game 63-7, and we're sitting here today having a conversation about who the starting quarterback is going to be, can you appease these guys? You are deflecting from the way the conversation should be about building and growing this team toward being a championship team next year and into the future. Look at every time, you don't need me to spell this out, but every time there have been multiple quarterbacks or a 2-quarterback system or anything like that, it's a toxic conversation. Clemson just went through it with DJU and Cade Klubnik. LSU went through it back with Jefferson and Lee in 2011. Jefferson was suspended. Lee had the great start of the season. Jefferson came back, kind of took the reins. It was toxic. The team kept winning, but the conversation never went away about who should be playing. So Brian Kelly has a delicate tightrope to walk, because he's got there's several doors, right? And behind door 1, he's got Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard and Ricky Collins, and that's awesome. And in door 2, he's got Jaden Daniels, and maybe Nussmeier leaves, and it's 2 young guys that have no experience behind your veteran. And behind door 3, you've got Jaden Daniels, and maybe both guys leave. And then it's Jaden and Ricky Collins. And y'all, that's basically what happened at LSU in 2018, remember? They brought in Joe Burrow. They went into fall camp. Both Lowell Narcisse and Justin McMillan left, and you were left with Joe Burrow, who had never started, and sophomore Miles Brennan. That was it. And we later learned Brennan was hurt, so Burrow was all you had. Now, it worked out, but that's not where you want your program to be. And so Brian Kelly and his staff realize right now that any of these situations are possible. That they could return all three guys, that one or two could leave, or one could leave, or both could leave. And not knowing that answer makes it very challenging to build this room, because what you cannot do if you are Brian Kelly, Mike Denbrock, and the staff is go into 2023 with only Jaden Daniels, who is a running quarterback and who we saw this year take shots and have an ankle injury, and you had to go to your backup, and a true freshman. You can't allow that to happen. So whatever the reality may be, they've just got to acknowledge it, accept it, address it, and then move into the season knowing that. I know there's a lot of people who want Garrett Nussmeier to be the quarterback. And you know how I feel about that. I think Garrett has the potential to be a great player. He's also got little experience and has shown the propensity to make mistakes that kill you. But regardless of how you feel about Nussmeier versus Daniels, the thing where we should all be unified in understanding is you cannot go into next year with only Jaden Daniels. So if it's after spring, if it's before, whatever it is. Now, Brian Kelly's telling you he fully expects all three of these guys to be here in the spring. Okay. They've had the conversations. Great. But coming out of spring, and there's going to be a portal window that opens up after that, you have got to know where these guys stand, and the guys have to know. Because if you try to appease everybody, and you go into the fall, and at some point in fall camp, you pare down reps, and you know who the starter is, and you have a similar situation like you did in 2018, now you're stuck. And that is a horrible situation potentially to be in. So I'm not sitting here telling you I have all the answers, because I don't. I'm not scouting the transfer portal every day. I'm not looking at who's out there. I'm on the high school ranks. That's why you have a coaching staff and a sports staff and guys and gals who help build the roster and manage the roster and do all that stuff. But Brian Kelly tells you there's no quarterback controversy. Jaden Daniels is your starter. But they're going to let the other guys continue to compete. That can't bleed into the season. And if you get to the season and you're in a situation where one or both those guys leaves, you're stuck. You can't get to that point. So whatever hard conversations Brian Kelly had with all three quarterbacks after the regular season to know where they stand, you're going to have to revisit that after spring as well. Because if one of those guys leaves, I'm going to say this again, I will continue to say this, if one or both of Walker Howard, Jay Daniels leaves, or Garrett Nussmeier leaves, if one or both of Garrett Nussmeier, Walker Howard leaves, you have got to replace him with a transfer. You've got to make sure that position group stays fortified. And there are so many quarterbacks, so many players, especially quarterbacks in college football, around college football, in the transfer portal, who jump looking for new opportunities. You got to make sure you have depth. It is never, ever, ever a bad thing to have experienced depth at the most important position in team sports. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.